Capel. I'm an account manager for AWS. I work for the Western Australia and South Australia team. And with me here is Alistair Cousins, who is a cloud specialist. Today we will give you a little bit of an overview of what AWS is all about. We will talk about the culture, some AWS services, and also typical customer journeys into the cloud. So we see some trends and we would like to share those with you. Alistair will talk about key enablers in the AWS cloud. What tools can you really leverage to get going quickly? And we will talk about day one. So how do you get started with AWS? You will walk away with some key snippets to get started today. So I wanted to start off with the Amazon culture. So Amazon.com, so the retail side of the business, really is all about being customer obsessed. We strive to be the most customer obsessed company in the world. And whoever has bought anything from Amazon in the past will know what that means. It really means that we go the extra mile to make sure that the buying experience and the online experience is the best experience you've ever had. So this translates in how we do business at AWS as well. For example, we won't lock you into contracts, and we really try to innovate on behalf of our customers. So we do this by having decentralized autonomous development teams. We call them 2 pizza teams because they can be fed with 2 pizzas, so they're relatively small. And they are working directly with customers, we develop and innovate on their behalf. And actually, this is exactly how AWS started as well. So Andy Jassy, who is now our Vice President of Amazon Web Services, he wrote a 6-page narrative on how he saw that Amazon.com had built a core competency in operating massive scale technology, infrastructure, and data centers. So he saw that the future was to really utilize this competency and this experience and provide this as a service to customers. So this 6-page narrative went all the way up the management ranks, all the way up to the CEO, Jeff Bezos, and it was decided to start Amazon Web Services. So today, AWS is the fastest growing multi-billion-dollar enterprise IT vendor in the world. So our customer obsession also shows through in how we build our account team around you. So there are many resources for you available as a customer, and a lot of which are free. Of course, you have an account manager, that will be me, who is your first point of contact, and really the gateway to all of the other resources. There are also solution architects for every customer, and they can help with tech reviews or explain best practices before you get started. There are solution specialists, for example, for big data, security, networking, for those customers who really need a deep dive. And you have a professional services department as well, who usually work tightly together with our partner ecosystem on delivering specific outcomes for customers. And then there's, of course, support. We have a support department as well, and they're both proactive and reactive. So that's quite different from traditional IT vendors, where they're only reacting to problems. We actually also provide you with proactive service. So before you get going, they can help you to validate your thinking and your architectures. Lastly, there's a training department. I wanted to mention them as well, because, well, they provide us with these webinars, also the lunch and learns, which are coming up soon. And if you want to get certified on AWS, there's a whole curriculum for that as well now as well. So those were kind of the soft resources that you can utilize on the platform. These are the actual AWS services these days. So as you can see, it's quite elaborate, and it almost doesn't fit on one page anymore. But yeah, so obviously we have invented a lot of new services over the years, and this is the overview right now. So throughout all these services, we want to stress that security is our job zero. So it starts with security and it ends with security throughout all these services, and we build that into every layer of every application and service we provide. We also give customers the tools to be secure in the cloud, so to secure their applications and their environments on AWS. So tools like identity and access management, the web application firewall, and key management service are key examples of that. Also, there are many managed services you can leverage for doing IoT type of workloads, for example, or to manage remote desktops with our service called Workspaces. These are just a few examples, so if you are interested in more managed services and finding out more about those, feel free to contact your account manager, and they will help you with that. So this was quite complex, so I tried to make it a bit simpler for you as well, just to give you an idea of what AWS is all about. So at the bottom you see our global infrastructure and networking. This is really what AWS takes care of, and which you don't really need to worry about at all. On top of that, you have compute sources that customers through self-service can spin up themselves and deploy their applications on top of or utilize for storage requirements or whatever use case you may have. On top of that, we also have application services, which again are the managed services that I just spoke about, like Workspaces, the remote desktop service that we have. Also Workmail, our email service, WorkDocs, content management, and we even have a PaaS solution in Elastic Beanstalk, so platform as a service. On top of that, there's a whole layer to help you deploy quicker and administer with clarity and transparency. So there's a lot of tools that we provide for you to do that. So we got to this place by innovating, and again, innovation is really in our DNA. And as you can see, the pace of innovation for AWS is actually accelerating. So in 2009, we had 48 significant feature or product releases. In 2013, this was already way up to, well, it says 159 here. I think it actually should be 280. And in 2015, we had 722 feature and product releases, up nearly 40% year over year. So customers really benefit from this continual evolution, innovation, and iteration because they get the newest and latest features and enhancements instantly. So there's no need for you to upgrade or redeploy or migrate. No, you can. It's part of the platform immediately, and you can leverage those new features immediately. So there's a couple of core services that I wanted to highlight. You might have seen them on the AWS Services overview as well. To begin with is our compute service, which is our Elastic Compute Cloud called EC2. So we provide a wide array of instance types to fit almost every imaginable workload, whether it is compute optimized or memory optimized. There's pretty much an instance for every single workload these days. So what we call an instance is what a lot of people would call a virtual machine in the traditional world. Then second to the left is the simple storage service, which is our S3 service. It is our secure, durable, and highly scalable object storage solution. Customers use this as a cornerstone to all their usage on AWS, basically because that's where your data will sit. There are lifecycle tools built into this tool so that when your data becomes obsolete or you want to move it to a cheaper storage solution, you can automate all of this, and it's built into S3. The third one is relational database service. Our relational database service features MySQL, SQL Server, MariaDB, Oracle, Postgres, and Amazon Aurora. It's a fully managed service so that you don't have to focus on managing the database, patching, upgrading the database. We do all that for you so you can focus on the application that runs on top of it. It's a really key service in our offering, and a lot of customers use it. Lastly, I spoke a little bit about security. Our virtual private cloud is really instrumental to this as well. It lets you provision a logically isolated section of the AWS cloud where you can launch your AWS resources. And you have complete control over the virtual networking environment, including a selection of your own IP address ranges, creating subnets, public or private, and configurations of routing tables and network gateways. Again, security is our #1 priority, and we give you the tools as well. So on top of these core services, you can continue to use what you're already familiar with. So I mentioned Oracle and SQL Server, but also if you're a .NET developer, a PHP or Python developer, we provide you with the tools to deploy that on AWS as well. In most cases, there is platform dedicated tools, but you are free to use your own tools as well. So everything is API driven within AWS, so you can hook things up quite easily like that. So all of this lands on our global infrastructure. And at AWS, we actually believe that our global infrastructure has been instrumental to our growth, one of the key components to our success. So our philosophy and terminology around our global infrastructure is a little bit different than what you might be used to, because we divide up our global infrastructure in regions. So that's quite logical. So a region is a geographical location somewhere in the world, but within a region is what we call availability zones. So every region has 2 or more availability zones, and an availability zone consists of 1 or more data centers. So if you take Sydney, for example, it has one region in Australia. It has 2 availability zones, and behind the scenes there might be even more data centers than to support those availability zones. So those availability zones are really important because you can be fully fault tolerant through deploying on both availability zones. Because every availability zone, where possible, they're on different floodplains, they're on different electricity grids, different earthquake zones where applicable. So we really do everything possible to separate those availability zones so that in the case of a disaster, they won't be wiped out together. However, they're close enough together that you can have single-digit millisecond latency for your applications and databases. So this means that you can deploy across 2 availability zones and immediately become highly available. Immediately you have a highly available architecture. So in the case of the relational database service that I just spoke about before, it's just a tick in the box on the console to deploy multi-AZ. Also really important to know that when you deploy in Sydney or wherever else in the world, we guarantee that we will never move that data out of their region without your consent. So unless you tell us to, that data will sit there and stay there. And this is important for compliancy workloads. So if you have any questions on how to best to architect for high availability, please feel free to reach out to us, and some technical people like Alistair, for example, can help you with that. Of course, pricing is very important as well. So I'll just take you through our pricing model, the illustration that you see on the right, because we have a value-based pricing model, and all of Amazon's pricing is based on this. So but basically what it means is that the more customers we acquire, the more AWS usage we get, also the more infrastructure we need to support all those customers. So this really gives us a lot of purchasing power with our suppliers, which means we can get volume discounts and get better economies of scale. So instead of keeping these discounts that we get at our suppliers, keeping that in our pocket, we give those discounts back to the customer. So we believe in the long-term goal and a long-term strategy, so that's part of that. And a testament to this is that we had 52 price drops since 2006, and this was largely without competitive pressure. Also, all of our products on the platform are built in a pay-as-you-go model, so you only pay for what you use. So this means that you can really align your needs to the business, and you don't overspend because you provision for peak capacity, for example, or you provision for that one-time sale that you do once a year. No, you only have to pay for what you use, And basically what that means is that the dark blue highlighted area on the picture on the left, it basically means that residual money you can keep in your pocket. So you're way more flexible in the cloud than you would be in the on-premise architectures. What that model also allows you to do is experiment more quickly. So we have had customers who spun up a whole big data analysis cluster to run a single experiment and then spin it all back down again. And instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on hardware with the needed specification and installing those and managing that everything works well together, instead of those hundreds of thousands of dollars, it costs them $12 to spin it up themselves in an afternoon, run the experiment, and spin it back down again. So it really allows you to experiment often, to fail quickly and succeed quickly, I must say as well, at a very low cost. And this really drives innovation within businesses, just because the threshold for trying new things is way lower. So the example I gave is for a fairly large business, but this also holds true for the smaller businesses who want to get closer to their customers, develop mobile apps and things like that. So to conclude this AWS overview section, what all of this really means is that we take care of the undifferentiated heavy lifting for you. So we realize that our customers do not want to be in the business of managing and building data centers. So we take care of that. We take care of the security behind the scenes, the power, the cooling, the labor that is involved, all the certifications and standards that you need to adhere to. So you don't have to do that, and you can focus on what makes your business unique. So we now move to the next section, which is the typical customer journey. So we saw a couple of main trends emerge over the last 10 years, and I will take you through those now. So for a first deployment, what we see a typical customer look at is usually a digital workload or a dev and test workload. So the reason people look at these workloads is in the case of digital, you can deploy everything from WordPress to Hybris on AWS. So WordPress being for a small business a standalone website to a fully fledged large e-commerce business on a Hybris. And that you can pick whatever language you want to develop in as well to deploy on AWS, like I mentioned before. So there's also a very large ecosystem that you can utilize with a lot of artifacts with pre-built images so that you don't have to start from scratch. So there's a lot of pre-built images either in the AWS marketplace or at our partners who have a lot of experience with implementing this, so that you don't have to like set everything up yourself. It's just an image that you launch and you can build your business on top of that. So the ability to scale up and down is also very important for these people, and that also makes it interesting for this workload because it makes your business agile and cost effective. Again, you don't need to provision hardware for that one-time sale that you have once a year. No, you can just move your resources dynamically with the amount of hits that your digital website or application gets. So you can spend your money basically where it matters most. So same goes for the dev and test. So you can quickly provision test machines in a matter of minutes, and you never run out of hardware. You don't need to sit and wait 6 to 8 weeks to be able to do that test. So when you're not developing or testing, just turn the machines off and stop paying for them. So we have customers who run scripts at the end of the day to kill all machines which have a dev or test tag associated to them. So obviously this will save you a lot of money, and the director of technology of Expedia calls it self-service flexibility because it really gives a lot of ownership to the developers and the testers. So your second deployment. So a lot of common services that companies look at when they have become comfortable with the platform, they did the dev and test workload or the digital workload. Then they quickly shift gears and look at some further services which are really low-hanging fruit. Services which are really common are Active Directory and DNS. They're pretty straightforward to do, and a lot of customers look at that for a second workload. But also enterprise applications like ERPs are being moved by many. GPT is a good example of a company who moved many of their enterprise applications over. Applications included SAP and SharePoint, for example. So lastly is big data and analytics, and this is a topic which I really like because they do really cool things with our platform. So for example, Qantas is doing their flight path planning on AWS. So this is really ideal for the cloud, big data and analytics, because of its elastic nature. So Qantas now can scale out as much as they need to run a difficult query, a query that used to take 4 weeks to calculate a single flight path of a plane. They now do under 1 hour, just because they can scale out and use the scale of Amazon Web Services. And lastly, more and more companies really decide that they don't want to be in the business of building data centers, managing their data center at all. So they're looking at a cloud-first strategy, and that's what Amazon calls an all-in strategy. So we do realize that some companies, due to regulations, cannot move everything to the cloud. So hybrid is definitely a part of this. But yeah, a cloud-first strategy is usually a multi-year program that you can work together with your account manager within AWS on to really work through the complex and regulated workloads, for example, and to see how to move those to the cloud and how to re-architect those if necessary, or if a simple lift and shift is sufficient. And the reason why these companies move everything to the cloud is, in the case of Suncorp, it is because they really want to create that culture of innovation within their company. So they want to be able to move quicker than the competition can and get closer to their customers through digital projects and iterations on those. And in the case of Netflix, I mean, I think everybody knows Netflix these days. They want to go global as quick as possible. So with AWS, you can go global in minutes, and they use our AWS regions to facilitate their video streaming service pretty much everywhere in the world these days. So now I will hand you over to Alistair Cousins, our cloud specialist, who will talk to some key enablers in the cloud journey.
Thanks, Ralph. So when we speak to our customers that have actually started on the cloud journey, or that they're well along, they consistently tell us about 4 key features of the platform that have really enabled that journey. AWS includes a really broad range of not just infrastructure services, but managed services that can take a significant load off you and your team and allow you to focus more on your core business applications. As Ralph mentioned earlier in the presentation, security is our #1 priority, and the AWS platform builds security into every layer. The AWS platform is built on automation at its core, and this is a key reason we achieve our economies of scale. But we also like our customers to automate their workloads. And to assist with this, we have a wide range of tools and services that can help you to automate workloads, from deployment through to management and monitoring and ensuring the health and performance of your environment. And to help you build, move, and operate successfully under AWS, we have a rich partner ecosystem that's standing by, ready to assist you with your journey. Now, these are some of the services that you can take advantage of that sit on top of the core infrastructure layer in AWS. Ralph already spoke a bit about the relational database service. And just to recap, the relational database supports 6 flavors of relational databases, including Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL, Postgres, MariaDB, and Amazon Aurora. Many of our customers who move to the cloud find they need to move a database workload across. And they find the relational database service takes a significant workload that they've currently invested in an on-premise environment, takes that work off their DBAs. RDS takes care of backups, high availability, and replication, and allows you and your DBAs to concentrate on your core business application. Now, when you're moving an application to the cloud, often you may need to sync it with an on-premise Active Directory. Amazon Directory Service allows you to complete this task. Directory Service can synchronize directly into your AD. It can also stand up a standalone AD for an isolated application. And it can even provide a fully managed Microsoft Active Directory service that can run within the cloud that you can build your applications on top of. For the data warehousing use cases out there, Amazon Redshift is our own petabyte scale data warehouse. You can start with a small database, scale out to terabytes and onto petabytes as your business needs grow. Redshift integrates with many popular BI tools like ClickView and Tableau. And finally, in the VDI space, we have Amazon Workspaces. This is a managed virtual desktop in the cloud, and it integrates with Active Directory. This allows the users in your business to have access to a desktop that's always available, running in the cloud, and linked with their sign-on credentials from your own environment. You can use Workspaces to enable a mobile workforce or to allow you to provide desktop applications embedded within your cloud environment. Now, when we speak about security, there's a few key aspects to consider. Security is not just about access controls. It's also about visibility. So when you're operating in an on-premise environment and you think about visibility in terms of security, you might be thinking about onerous audits and maintaining complex databases of configurations and controls. Now, because AWS is a giant automated platform, you can obtain all of the information you need for security audits via our console or via a single API call. You can understand all of the resources you have deployed and the security configurations you have applied to them. In addition to visibility, the AWS platform has fine-grained security control at every layer. Our IAM service allows you to create individual users for every member of your business, and you can set up policies on those users, restricting their access to only the functions and resources that they need to complete their job. Then at the service level, there are additional controls relevant to the service. These might include things like encryption, monitoring, and alerting. And they're all available as core features as part of the platform with no additional uplifts. And then finally, when we talk about security in the cloud, it's really important to understand that the AWS cloud operates on something called the shared responsibility model. Now, the shared responsibility model means that AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud platform, while our customers take responsibility for the security of the applications they deploy into the cloud. The AWS cloud has been verified through a number of security certifications, and many of them are listed on this slide. Some of the key ones include SOC 123 and ISO 27001. In addition to the certifications for our platform, we also have service provider certifications such as HIPAA and PCI that allow customers to build workloads compliant with these regulatory regimes on top of the AWS platform. Now, a key value proposition that can come from moving to the cloud is automation. At Amazon, we like to automate as much as possible to allow us to achieve scale and efficiency, and we believe our customers should do the same. Amazon provides a broad range of automation tools that can really help you with your success on the platform. When it comes to deploying applications to AWS, there's a couple of key services to look at. Elastic Beanstalk provides a pre-built best practice environment that you can deploy your application straight into. It takes away the need for you to worry about deploying servers, load balancers, and databases. Elastic Beanstalk will provision all of these based on some simple parameters that you provide to the service, and it allows you to then focus on your application development. If you want to go deeper and further customize your environment, CloudFormation allows you to template out your entire AWS environment into a JSON document. CloudFormation allows you to actually define your infrastructure as code and to manage this just like your source code for your applications. When it comes to day-to-day management, CloudWatch is a great service for just keeping an eye on the applications you have deployed in the cloud. All of AWS services emit metrics into CloudWatch. Think of things like the CPU load on your servers, the size of the database under RDS, the amount of objects you might have stored in Amazon S3. All of these are available as metrics in CloudWatch. CloudWatch also allows you to build alarms based on those metrics. So you could trigger alarms based on a scenario such as the CPU on my server has exceeded 80% for 5 minutes. You may want to take action based on that. And one of those actions could be auto-scaling your environment. Auto-scaling is a feature of the EC2 service that allows you to dynamically add and remove servers based on a parameter such as CPU load. Going back to one of the graphs that Ralph showed earlier, where AWS allows you to manage your usage based on demand, auto-scaling facilitates this. Think about a daily load on a server. Often you'll have a peak during the business hours and a trough overnight. Auto-scaling allows you to add servers during the day as the CPU load goes up and then shed them overnight. And with the AWS pricing model, you only pay for the capacity you use. Now, monitoring. We've already spoken about security. And monitoring your account configuration and the activities going on within it is critical to operating securely on the cloud. And we have a couple of services that can really help with this. AWS Config and CloudTrail give you a view into the configuration of your environment and allow you to move over time to see any changes that have occurred. CloudTrail itself tracks every API call made against your account, can identify who made those calls, where they made the call from, and what the outcome of that call was. You can leverage Config and CloudTrail to build a complete picture of all the activity in your account and use this with your security certifications and audits. Now, the final enabler to moving to the cloud, and what probably the most important, is our partners. The AWS ecosystem is built on top of a rich range of partners. The ones in this slide are our premier consulting partners, and these are our top tier of partners who have demonstrated extensive experience deploying customer solutions on AWS. Partners like Bulletproof and Melbourne IT have helped hundreds of customers move business-critical workloads to the cloud, and then assisted them further with the ongoing management of that infrastructure to ensure their success. We also have a broad range of advanced consulting partners. Some partners in this list, such as Polar7 or Rackspace, focus on broad, general-purpose IT workloads. These guys can consult with you and understand what you're doing in your environment today and help you design a scalable and highly available solution on the AWS cloud. Other partners have focused specialities like Base2 or DS. These partners can help you with specific aspects of your workload, such as DevOps or custom software development that's built to be cloud native. When you're looking to move a workload to the cloud, working with your AWS Account Team and AWS partners can help you to fill skill gaps and accelerate your movement and ongoing success in the cloud. So now we've spoken about some of those key enablers that our customers tell us have been critical to moving their workloads to the cloud. But let's look at what it actually takes to move a workload across. Now I'm going to take you through some of the key steps and options that are available to you to move some of your systems that you're operating today into AWS. The first step before you move anything to AWS is you'll need an AWS account. Creating an AWS account is a really simple process. You need to go to aws.amazon.com and sign up with a credit card. To verify your identity, we will contact you via phone. There'll be an automated contact. And once you complete this verification step, your account will be set up and you're ready to go. Typically, this takes minutes. Now, once you've created that account, you're actually ready to go and launch servers, but there's a few things you should go through first, just to make sure your account is set up securely and correctly from day one. When we talk about security at AWS, we always think about using a least privilege approach. And what this means is setting up policies and rules such that people operating your account with AWS are only able to do the actions that they really need to complete the tasks that they've been given from your business. Such an approach really limits any vulnerabilities to your environment and ensures that people are only able to do the things that they need to do. So we have a service called Identity and Access Management, or IAM, and this allows you to create individual users for each member of your company that needs to access the platform. And within IAM, you can then create security policies tied to those users or groups of users that restrict them to only be able to perform specific tasks on the platform. These tasks might be things like launching servers, creating data, or deleting data. And you can have fine-grained policies down to the individual user and resource level on the platform. Now, after you've created IAM users for the members of your team, we also recommend you look at enabling a feature called multi-factor authentication. Now, ultimately, your AWS account may end up hosting some systems that are critical to your business. So you really need to think about treating your AWS account much like you would your bank account. MFA is becoming an increasingly popular feature across many, many platforms out there, including things like banking or email services. And AWS supports using today. You can set up multi-factor authentication via a physical token from a vendor such as Gemalto, and one of those is pictured in this slide. Or you can use a software MFA, like Google Authenticator. And we recently also launched SMS-based MFA. To configure this, you can do it on both your root account, which is the account you created when you first signed up for AWS, and those individual IAM users. And as a best practice guidance, we recommend you configure it on your root user and any IAM users that are used for any administrative tasks such as creating or destroying infrastructure. Okay, so we've gotten some of the basics of security out of the way. You've hopefully created an AWS account, you've created some individual users, and you've set up MFA. You're ready to move a workload. But what does that really involve? There's always going to be a planning step in moving any workload to any platform. And with AWS, the decisions you need to make are relatively simple. These are some of the key questions you should ask yourself. Is the workload I'm going to move across something existing in my environment, or am I going to try and build something new? Do I want to use AWS to allow me to replace some servers in my data center, or am I going to run some experiments on the platform and build something greenfield? Your approach based on this decision could be quite different. Then, as Ralph already mentioned, AWS is present currently in 12 geographic regions around the world, and we make it very easy for you to deploy your workload in any of those locations. So it's important to decide where your customers are, where your business is, and select the best geographic location to provide the lowest latency and the highest performance for those users. And then finally, something we always talk about with our customers is connectivity. AWS makes it very easy to host public applications that are available on the internet. But equally, you can build an application in the cloud that's entirely private, something that's hidden away in a private network that's only available to you from your office. It's important to define these requirements up front so that when you actually go and launch your servers and build things out, you build them in the right way and you're secure from day one. So when we see customers start to move workloads across, we see three common approaches to that migration. The first is exactly like you would probably do in your data center today. Install from scratch. You can launch a server with Amazon EC2 in minutes. It's a simple wizard-driven approach where you go and click through, choose the size of the server, the storage, the network configuration, and off you go. You've got a server, you can log in and you can start building. But maybe you don't want to go through that process. Maybe you want to get something ready built. So Amazon at its core is a retail business, and we love marketplaces. We love providing ways for customers to buy ready-built solutions. And the AWS Marketplace allows you to go and search using an interface very similar to the Amazon.com store and purchase products from over 2,000 products from our ISV partners. In addition to the marketplace, we also have a number of test drives of relatively complex applications like SAP or Microsoft Exchange available for you to try. And we also have ready-built reference deployments of some of these applications. Finally, many of our customers have a need to simply move an application as it is over to the cloud, and they don't want to go through the process of rebuilding it and reconfiguring things. We call this a lift and shift workflow. And there's two ways to approach this problem that I'll go into in more depth in a minute. So let's look at installing from scratch. What would this actually involve? So fundamentally, what you do to install from scratch is you launch a server into EC2 from a base image, which we call an Amazon Machine Image, or an AMI. When you launch this, this could be a Windows, from Windows Server 2003 through to 2012, or Linux, and we support most popular flavors of both operating systems. Once you launch this image, within minutes you'll be able to log into the server as a full administrator. You have full control over the server and can configure it in any way you like. So at this point you would install your software and configure the server and test to make sure that it works to your expectations. Once you've completed this process of setting up the server, installing everything, copying your data over, you're actually ready to go serving your customers. But as a general advice, what we would suggest you do is look to create your own custom image at this point of the server. This provides you with a gold image, which you can use for some of the platform features like auto-scaling to allow you to horizontally scale into multiple servers. But also, it gives you a checkpoint, which you can use in future. So say you wanted to patch that server at a later date, and then you needed to roll back for whatever reason, well, you can roll back to that image, and you haven't wasted any time. Now, this is what the AWS Marketplace actually looks like, and as I mentioned, it's a pretty familiar interface if you've ever seen the Amazon.com retail store. Here we have pictured some applications that are available for you in the e-commerce space. So Magento is a very popular e-commerce suite, and a number of vendors have made this available as a one-click deployment. In the marketplace, vendors make software available either for free or on a per hour or per monthly basis, and some even allow you to bring your own license for software like Checkpoint Firewall or Citrix NetScaler. I also mentioned before that we have quick start reference deployments, and you can see some of the solutions we have here, which include popular Microsoft solutions, SAP, Cloudera, MongoDB, and Trend Micro Deep Security. And finally, when we're speaking about lift and shift, this architecture diagram takes you through the two common flows for bringing across an existing workflow as is to the cloud. Now, we can take your existing images from a Hyper-V or VMware or Xen environment and bring them across using the EC2 VM import service. And this flow at the top shows the steps involved to bringing across one of these images. The task it requires you to export an image in your virtual environment on-premise, and then you would upload this image to the Amazon S3 service. Once the image is uploaded, you'd use the VM import service to convert that image from your on-premise format to our native format for our own hypervisor, and this will result in it being available as an EC2 instance for you to launch. When you launch that server, it'll be configured exactly as it was on-premise, but we've taken the liberty of installing the correct drivers and configuring some operating system settings so that it will work immediately on the platform. Now, this process of moving images across can take some time. If your server is hundreds of gigabytes, that can take some time to upload some data. So we also have partner solutions, such as those listed here, which can actually use an agent-based approach to replicate directly into EC2. What these solutions all do is they look at your running VMs in your virtual environment, and they look at the changes happening on the disk layer, and they replicate these changes into EC2. This then facilitates a really easy, almost zero downtime cutover of your servers into the cloud, and it can really help accelerate your migration to the platform. So now I'm going to wrap up and take you through and just review some of the key points of the presentation. So when we started the presentation, Ralph took you through some of the key aspects that make Amazon different through our customer obsession and the breadth and depth of the platform that has services appropriate for every workload. We believe that you can use AWS to grow your business, to innovate and experiment and try new things, become more agile, and to cost optimize your workloads. We've been doing this business for a long time now, and we see that there are typical adoption paths. We see many customers start to play with the platform with things like those dev, test, and digital workloads. They're very common early experiments that we see customers run. But then the journey really does break out into more of those core business systems and ERP platforms that Ralph mentioned. And finally, we see many customers, after they've proven the platform and they've moved those core systems across, they really do start to think about a cloud-first mentality. No longer buying, racking, and stacking servers as a first decision. Why not try it on the cloud first and see if you can leverage the agility and the pricing model to bring a lot more speed to market in your business. Now, we've gone through many of the key platform features that can help you through automation. We've also spoken about the team that's built around you. You have your account team, you have solution architects. There's AWS support who are available 24/7 to help you both proactively and reactively. And there's our professional services and partners that can help you to accelerate, optimize, and make sure you're building things in the right way for your business very quickly. And because AWS is ultimately a self-service platform, you can go to the website today, you can sign up in minutes, and you can get started with moving your workload. Now, this webinar is the start of a series for the year. We have 6 webinars scheduled for the year. But next week, we have some lunch and learns around ANZ. So on Tuesday, we have sessions in Christchurch, Canberra and Perth. Wednesday, Wellington, Sydney and Adelaide. Thursday in Auckland, Melbourne and Brisbane. And there's a link here in the presentation where you go deeper into what it's actually really like to move some workloads across to the cloud and how you can really get the most out of the platform. Later in the year, we've got the Sydney Summit coming up in April, which is going to be a really big event where there's going to be lots of tracks talking about different ways to use the cloud more effectively, and we'll have lots of our customers getting up and speaking about their success on the platform. We'll be doing the same thing in Auckland on the 29th of June. And finally, if there's things here that have provoked some interest and you want to go deeper, please always consider our training resources. There's a broad and rich set of services, and to go with that, there's a broad and rich set of training courses that you can go through to really develop your skills and your understanding of the platform. And there's a link to our training team there. So now we've got about 10 minutes left in the webinar. So we'll hand over to Q&A, which you can raise questions in the chat channel in the session, and we'll be standing by ready to help you with them. Thank you for attending.